You can start investing for your kids right now. If you are a parent and you want to set up your kids financially for a better future, then this is for you because I am going to be covering why it's important to start investing for your kids right now. I'm going to talk about the common types of investment accounts that are available out there, and I'm going to cover the pros and cons for each type and how you can decide which one is right for your family. So make sure you stay tuned. So, first off, why should you invest for your kids? Well, based off this current economy, we've seen last year and over the past years just home affordability, high cost of living, all of that. And, you can't really depend on a 9 to 5 job anymore. So, setting them up financially through investing for them is going to help them out in their future and have that security for them. Not only that, for many of us, for many first gen Latinas, we grew up with little to no knowledge about investing. And now that we are adults, we are now figuring it out. We are learning about index funds, Roth IRAs, maxing out our accounts, and making sure that we are taking advantage of that employer matching that your employer may have for you. But one of the biggest things that we learn is the importance of time in the stock market, because the earlier that you start contributing, the better, because time is your friend. Because the earlier that you start, that is more time that your money has to compound and to grow. Well, what does that have to do with investing for your kids? Well, now imagine if you have even more time by investing as a child or as a baby, because now you have even way more time that your money is going to be able to compound and grow. But how do you invest for your kids? Let's get into it. Now, when I first heard about investing for your kids, it seemed like, like a scam, like it wasn't real. It's like, how can you invest for them? Like it didn't make sense to me. But then I started learning more about it, and there are so many ways that you can invest for your kids depending on what you are trying to accomplish. And the great thing about it is that for most of these, there's no minimum age, so as long as they are under 18, you can open most of these accounts and start investing for them. And that is because you are basically creating custodial brokerage accounts for them. There's several of them, different types, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But I want to talk about a few that are more popular, and one of them is the UGMA, the UGMA, I guess, if you want to call it that way. And that is the Uniform Gifts to Minors Act. It's created under that act, and it is a custodial brokerage account that you can have, that you can open up for your child as long as they are under the age of 18. Now, again, there is no minimum age, so you can start them off as soon as they are born and get that social security number. Now, that account is available in all 50 states, but it is limited to financial assets that are cash, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and insurance. But there is another one called the UTMA account, and that's under the Uniform Transfers to Minors Act. Now, this is one account that I have for my daughter because this allows a wider range of assets that can be included on top of like the stocks and stuff. Because as a real estate investor, I want to invest for my daughter as well. And that is one of the things that you can do with the UTMA account. I like to say UTMA, I don't know if that's correct or not, but you can buy real estate and place it into this account for them. Now, the key thing to remember is that you can't take that asset back. So, if you are thinking that, like, oh, I want to use it for now and then give it to them later, then don't put it into this account because then you can't take it back out. So, once it's in there because now it's theirs. Now, with these types of accounts, they are for your kid. You just have the ability to manage it. So, You open up an account for them and you can start putting money into it and start contributing to it. The only thing that you want to remember is that even though there's really no contribution limit on how much can be gifted, because that's what is considered, you putting money into these accounts, they're considered like gifts. There is a certain threshold that can be triggered if it hits this minimum, which is $19,000 for 2026. And that's just going to require you to do a gift tax reporting requirement. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. Another thing with these accounts is that it can impact their future financial aid eligibility because it takes that into account. The other thing is that there's no tax advantages beyond the basic thresholds of not having to report or whatever, as long as you don't hit that gift tax requirement. But other than that, the earnings are taxed at the child's rate up to a certain limit known as the kiddie tax. And I'll have that information in the blog or in the show notes or the description. And for example, if your child's interest and dividends and other unearned income total more than 2,700, then that may be subjected to a specific tax on the unearned income of those children. So then they may be required to file a tax return. So make sure that you are letting your tax preparer know, or get with the CPA and start learning about that stuff, or get with a professional, a tax professional, to help you navigate that, because you may be required to do a tax return for them. The other account that is available is a Roth IRA for kids. Kids can have Roth IRAs, but the requirement is that they have to have an earned income. They can, like, if they're old enough and are babysitting or modeling, or you can even hire them for the family business. And this is when you'll see, like on social media, where they have their kids as part of their marketing, or they give them a job in their business. They are now paying their kid an income. And then there's also, tax benefits on that I won't get into by hiring your own child. But now you can contribute to their Roth IRA because now they're earning an income. And so that's how you can do it that way. And the thing with a Roth IRA is that it's tax-free growth and withdrawals in retirement. The contributions, not the earnings, can be withdrawn penalty free. But one thing to remember, again, because the requirement is that they have an earned income, you do have to have documentation. So you can't just go and say, hey, I paid my kid X, Y, and Z amount for this. Make sure you're having a payroll or some documentation to provide. There are also some annual contribution limits that can apply. And again, you could go to the IRS website and check those out and make sure that you take those into account. The other investment type of account that you can have is more of like a savings plan, is a 529 college savings plan. Now, this is a tax advantage account, but it is specifically designed for education expenses. So this is another one that has no minimum age. And as long as you started below the age of 18, then you can start contributing and sending funds to this account, and that money gets invested and can be used for education purposes. It's tax-free growth when used for qualifying education. It has high contribution limits, and it could be used for things like college, trade school, and even some like educational expenses from K to 12. So you can look more into that and see what applies there. The cool thing about this is that you can transfer the account to a different child or beneficiary. Let's say, for example, my stepson, I opened one for him and he decides he's going to the military. Well, now he's going to have access to his own GI Bill, which pays for his own college. And during his military service, he can get assistance for school. So then he doesn't necessarily need the 529 as much anymore. So now I could either combine it with my daughters or maybe give it to another beneficiary. maybe like a niece or nephew or something like that. It's really whoever you designate. So that's the cool thing about that. Again, there are penalties if you use them for non qualified expenses. The thing is, you do have limited investment choices. It's not as, you don't have as many choices as the other ones. And, you have to look at your state and see what's available and what applies, right? Because depending on the state, it might have different criteria. The last one I want to talk about is a bit controversial because it's a brand new type of account that is proposed by the current administration, Trump, and they're called the Trump accounts. It's a little bit up in the air how beneficial it is. It's so brand new. Matter of fact, it's not going to be available till summer of 2026, but you can elect to have one opened for your child. And so basically, it gives parents or guardians, it allows them to open a new type of individual retirement account for their children. Again, they're called Trump accounts. It's a pilot program and they contribute $1,000 for children that are born between January 1st of 2025 and December 31st of 2028. Now, you don't have to contribute. This is what the government says. They're going to put $1,000 in that account already for you, but you can contribute up to $5,000 per year to increase growth and invest that way. The thing is that you don't really have a choice on, at least from the minimal information that I was able to gather, because again, it's a brand new program. There's not much information out there yet, but it looks like those funds are going to be automatically invested in American companies, which is where the big controversy is. So, I'm not going to get into that, but you can do your own research on that and draw your own opinions on that. But at the age of 18, they can withdraw those funds right away to use for things like education or buy a home, basically all the tax advantages of a traditional IRA. Again, this is going to be available in summer 2026, but to me, I don't like that you don't have control of the portfolio. And I don't like what it probably is entailing, especially being invested in American companies that you don't get to decide. So I have some thoughts about that. So I don't think I'm going to open that. Think I'm just going to continue with my 529 that I have for my daughter and her UTMA account, and then eventually start her a Roth IRA account because I plan to hire her for like the podcast and stuff like that. So those are the three accounts that I plan to have, which brings me to the question, which one is right for you? Now, again, you don't have to have all of these. There's a lot of accounts out there, and you might be tempted to go and open all of these. I am opening several for my daughter just because I have different types of goals. Like, I want to make sure that her college is taken care of, but I also want her to start being in the stock market and being able to put real estate in her portfolio. And then the Roth IRA is just because she could have access to some tax-free accounts and stuff like that. So the tax advantages for that is one of the reasons that I want to open. And then that's more money I could put into her account because I'm paying her, plus some of the tax benefits as the employer by hiring your own child. So there's some stuff there too. But really figuring out what account is for you is deciding what goals are you trying to achieve. Are you just trying to like create an account for college and want to make sure that they're okay with that? Then just start a 529. You can start with your state. If you are not too much worried about contributing real estate or whatever, then you might just start a UGMA account and just have them in the stock market. So that's nice. If you do have a business and then you want to take advantage, like I said, of the tax advantages from having your child as an employee, plus being able to create a Roth IRA for them and getting them into the stock market, then that might be the option for you. But again, don't think that you have to have all of them. Just pick one and then just go from there. The next thing you want to think about is deciding how much you want to contribute. And there are calculators out there to help you figure out how much you want to contribute based on if you want to target a certain amount. For example, with the 529s, it has a great calculator. It has a great tool to where you could put, like, for example, a university, and it tells you like the average tuition that they're going to need, and it adjusts it for inflation. And so then it calculates, okay, this is how much your kid is going to need to be able to afford the tuition by the time they are going to college, right? And she's only like about to be 2 years old. So she has a lot of time. And then you can adjust, okay, if I contribute $100, if I contribute $200, how much is that going to be? And then again, you can choose to do what you can. That's the important thing. Don't think that you have to max out. Any little bit helps. It's better than nothing. I don't expect to be able to contribute enough to pay the full tuition, but I expect to have enough to make a huge dent, and that way she doesn't have to worry. And of course, I plan to help in that way. And also, she could have like her Roth IRA and stuff like that to help out. So, lots of different avenues that I'm playing around with. The next thing you want to figure out is, depending on what account you are trying to open, then where do you go open it? If it's a 529, then start with your state. You can open in different states, but start with your state because your state might have the best options out there and might be easier. I have the one in Texas and it's super easy and it has some good benefits. So I did one, and I opened a UTMA account. Find the brokerage that is right for you. I use Fidelity, and I'll post a link. It's an affiliate link, so it'll be down in this description in the show notes if that's something that you want to do. Now, I will say that when you open these accounts, it might be intimidating. I know it was for me at first when I opened these accounts because there's a lot of random stuff and a lot of information and can feel complicated, but they have a lot of how-tos and guides to get started that and videos on their website. So make sure you check that out if you do end up using Fidelity or Vanguard or whatever. But you also want to make sure that you automate those contributions. That means that you automate the funds coming from your bank account into their investment account. But the key thing, and this is where many of us that had to learn about investing in our 401ks or whatever, that you have to assign those funds into something, to an account, to an investment, and automate that portion as well. Because it's one step to automate taking, let's say, $100 from your bank account to their investment account. And then you have to do the next step of automating those $100 to actually be invested into whatever fund you want, whether that's an index fund or whatever. So make sure that you don't forget that step. Otherwise, you're just sending money to that account and it's not going anywhere. It's not getting invested. It's just basically you're putting it into a savings account. So make sure that you do those two steps. And the last thing, you want to make sure that you are reviewing it periodically and at least quarterly, monthly if possible. But for example, with my daughter, like her 529, I send a certain amount every month, so I don't really have to worry about it. But I do check it quarterly to kind of see, how the investments are going. I may adjust or whatever. Same thing with her UTMA account. I may adjust depending on what's going on at that time. But because she has so much time ahead of her, I'm not too stressed about it. And that's what I want. I don't want you to get stressed out of trying to figure out their stock investments as well. Just pick something like an index fund, an ETF, or whatever, and then just stick to it. Don't overcomplicate it even more for you. Just what matters is that you're putting something in there, and time is your friend again. So, okay, now I know that is a lot of information, especially if you are the first in your family that has been trying to do this, has been learning about investing, and then now you got to learn about investing for your kid. It can be a lot, but remember, just keep it simple with these steps. Just commit to just opening one account, commit to setting up that automation, and just taking those small steps. Don't put too much responsibility or stress on you about trying to keep up with their investment accounts. Just make it simple for you. Again, you are setting up your kids' financial future. Any step that you take is a positive one for them, and you're setting them up to be able to not have to stress out about finances in their future when they are grown, and they could then, choose to do what they want, have more freedom, have more stability, have more choices. We are breaking these cycles where I, was stressed about money. So I didn't have as much choices. So I had a lot of financial anxiety. And now we have the opportunity to set up our kids to avoid that and be able to have more stability and have more choices than we had. But I don't want you to get lost in that, because that's what happens a lot of times, is that we're like, oh wow, we're so behind, we have to hurry up, especially if your kids are older. Just do what you can. It makes a difference whether you believe it or not. Again, my Fidelity link will be down below. Make sure you share this episode with another parent that might need this, might find this helpful, because our community needs this type of info. We need to get this out there and let our community know, like, hey, you can start investing for your kids now as well as yourself. But yeah, other than that, I will see you in the next one. Bye.